This Week in Politics on KSFY. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Allen. We are on the road this week, coming to you from Waterloo, Iowa, as we were able to spend a day with the presidential campaign of Democratic hopeful Cory Booker, who visited several cities in a campaign swing that lasted a weekend in length. On his first campaign visit to Iowa as an officially declared presidential candidate, Cory Booker chose for his first stop the basement of a church in Mason City, Iowa, in the northern part of the state, a smaller Iowa city with a population of just over 27,000. But every chair was filled and some were standing as Booker outlined why he is seeking the nation's top job. He says he will be a strong supporter of public education and veterans and wants to see a reformed healthcare system that covers more people while being less expensive than what's happening now. But Booker says he's also running because of what he's seen in the last 2 years and that a change is needed in the White House.
This is a president who said a lot of things about a lot of people. He's demeaned and degraded women, minorities, Muslims, judges, the media. But this is ultimately a campaign that's not about him. This is about us as a country and who we're going to be and what we're going to stand for. And so we need to start making sure that this isn't just about what we're against. It's got to be about what we're for, and I'm talking about us as an American people. We need a revival of civic grace in this country. We need to show the decency and kindness and goodness of who we are as a nation. Our politics doesn't have to be trash talking and trolling and toxicity. It could actually be speaking to the better angels of our nation, and that's the best of who we are, and that's the kind of campaign I'm going to run.
Also on the minds of many in this area of northern Iowa that is predominantly rural, the farm economy and what is being done to it by the ongoing trade war with China, which started last July. In 1974, Congress turned trade authority power over to then-President Richard Nixon, and the White House has retained that authority ever since. I asked Cory Booker, who is a sitting United States Senator from New Jersey, if he believes Congress should take back that trade authority if the trade war with China isn't solved soon.
Look, this trade war with China and Trump's overall tariffs are hurting Iowans. They're really put a lot of hurt on folks. And in many ways, we're paying those taxes. He's raising taxes on American consumers in ways that aren't constructive. And so there doesn't seem to be a larger strategy in the way he's going about this. I mean, to use the national security tariffs against Canada, I don't know if anybody's checked, but the last time I looked, Canada wasn't militarily threatening us. So this is a president who's been reckless in his strategies, reckless in his tactics, who has been lacking of strategies when it comes to how to make sure we have fair trade. And I do think that we should have the right kind of balance of power, as the founders intended, checks and balances on presidential power.
Booker told this Mason City crowd that his campaign will not accept donations from political action committees, and that he anticipates most of his donations will be small dollar donations from regular Americans who want to be involved in the political process. Iowans are known political skeptics. Retail politics is still the name of the game here. Iowans don't want to just hear a stump speech. They want to be able to talk with the candidates one-on-one, look them in the eye, and size them up for themselves. Booker seems to understand this about Iowa. Following his Mason City appearance, Booker talked with every attendee who wanted some of his time. He signed autographs and took selfie after selfie. And Booker told me he knows to win the Iowa caucus a year from now means he will be spending real time with Iowa voters.
I'm going to go all over Iowa. That's what's important to me, is to make sure that I run a campaign that doesn't just go to the larger cities alone. And I want to show Iowans that I'm going to be a candidate that goes to everybody I can, to every community, every neighborhood. And it's just an honor to be able to start here. But I hope that if you're an Iowan, you know I'm coming to a neighborhood near you soon.
So what was the reaction from Booker's first official campaign stop in Iowa? Voter Linda Willicke tells me she likes what she heard.
His emphasis on that we're in this together, that as a country and as individuals, we all depend on the work of each other, and that's something we should emphasize as we look at all the issues.
But don't get Linda wrong. While she might have liked what Cory Booker had to say here, she is by no means on board yet.
He's in the mix for consideration. I'm just starting to look at people more closely.
And that is what Booker and every other presidential hopeful who ends up in the mix will be facing over the next year here in Iowa. Simply because a voter may like you doesn't mean you've earned their support. From Mason City, Booker went next to Waterloo to discuss community diversity. Waterloo has a population of just over 67,000, and its African American community is facing issues you might not expect to find in a mid-sized Iowa city.
Between 45 and 50% of the individuals in the Black Hawk County Jail were African American, even though we only represent about 17% of the population. So there are some issues going on.
Jerome Amos Jr. is a city councilman in Waterloo, and he tells me incarceration isn't the only problem. An estimated 20% of the city's African American population is also unemployed, men and women who want jobs but can't get one. When Amos asks Waterloo businesses why they're not hiring those men and women, they tell him they don't have the skills for the jobs they need to fill.
Those are reasons, I call them excuses, but there has to be a way to eliminate those barriers. And that's what I want to see happen is those barriers be eliminated so that individuals, no matter who you are, what you look like, have the opportunities to have that decent job, provide, and have a family.
In fact, conditions in Waterloo for people of color are so bad that an analysis of living conditions for African Americans released last November by USA Today found Waterloo is the worst city in the entire nation for Black Americans. Councilman Amos was part of a community roundtable discussion with Cory Booker to shine a light on these issues. After that meeting, Booker told me that Waterloo's issues are a snapshot of a real problem needing a real solution, with no one finding that solution.
But we have to have everybody having a more determined focus on that goal. Mm-hmm. You know, it's nice to say those words, but unless you're really committed to leave your comfort zone, to engage people, to have a more courageous empathy for one another, and really see and listen and hear the struggles of that kid who came home from being incarcerated for a nonviolent drug offense, that for using drugs the way that Obama or Bush admitted to doing. We've got to start seeing each other and valuing each other and knowing that this community, as in every community, won't be great unless everybody is participating, everybody has opportunity, everybody is benefiting. You cannot have a great nation unless you really do become one nation under God, indivisible, where everyone has liberty and justice. And when that is denied, a community, a neighborhood, it actually creates a cancer in the whole body politic.
Cory Booker says he wants to bring people together as president, and that only when we find more similarities with one another and not differences will there be any breakthroughs on the problems that face this nation.
When we start working together, sweating together, struggling together, trust is built. And that's what we really need, is that trust right now.
The beginning of Booker convincing Iowans he's the one for that job is just beginning, and he has 350 more days to make his case until the Iowa caucus.